Welcome to this first episode of Collate Discovery, a new show where we explore features and functions in Collate. I am joined by Karimian, a solutions engineer here at Collate. How you doing, Keya?
And as always, good to see you, Shawn. Looking forward to this new segment.
Gonna be popping. What do the kids say these days?
I believe it gives aura, is what they say now.
I missed that one. So today we're going to get into glossaries and glossary terms. We're going to explain the concept and how it looks in Collate and why the topic is important. So you ready?
Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Okay, awesome. So glossary and glossary terms. First, before we get into what those mean, what pillar of Collate are we talking about? We're talking about data governance because we are referring to relating our business terms and definitions to existing data assets. How do we relate them? We'll get into that in a little bit. But having that relation allows for more context and more visibility into how your organization or team defines certain phrases, acronyms, and other words, I guess you could say. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. So we're actually going to start at the database table level here. So why are we doing this? Because this is, again, I love to call it an anchor page because you're always coming back to this. There's a ton of visibility here from aspects of discovery, data observability, and of course, data governance. So right off the bat, what catches your eye here? These tags, because they're colorful, right? These tags provide, again, that context. But
Yeah.
tags aren't necessarily business definitions, right? Those are two separate things. Labeling something and providing more context may mean two different things here. So if we scroll down, you'll see right here on the right-hand side, glossary terms. We're able to associate business definitions with data assets that they apply to. So it's as easy as having these glossary terms in the Collate system. How it gets there, you can manually put it in. You can use our API to import these definitions in. Or you can have an existing CSV file somewhere on your computer, like, in a random folder like we all have, that has those business terms and definitions. And you're able to import that with ease. So just three ways you can import them. Now, when it comes to relating them to data assets, you can come here and manually do it. You can create a approval process to relate terms to data assets. Again, you can use your API, or you can use our automations, which is covered in a different segment. But our automations allow for bulk action. So you can say something like, for every table within this schema, let's make sure these two glossary terms are associated. So just a few ways to.
So if I add, let me ask you a question here. If I add a glossary term or terms here, it's applying at the table level?
Correct. It's applying at the table level. So when it's here, I'm able to click on this. I'm actually able to click on this glossary term, and it takes me to the glossary term page itself. Notice how the govern widget here highlighted as soon as I did that, because again, this goes down in our data governance portion of things. If I come here, I can see all sorts of things around this. I can see the description, which there isn't any. I must have clicked on the most unlucky one here. But we can see these synonyms that are added. So maybe you can relate glossary terms to glossary terms, related terms, tags, references, the domain that it's a part of. That's a big thing because you're not just categorizing your data assets, you're categorizing your business terms and definitions. You also have owners and reviewers here, which we'll get into why we have reviewers for glossary terms here in a second. And then obviously custom properties. Now, if I take a look around a little further out, I can see version history. So just like our database table level, we have this version history functionality that allows you to not just see what changes were made to our glossary term, but able to go back in time and see that term before those changes were made or before any change was made prior to that date. So
yeah, that's handy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite features to show off because it's not just on glossary terms, it's on a lot of places in the application. So great to keep track of that. One of the more important tabs up here is, we have glossary terms. We also have assets. So when we come to assets, you're actually able to see all of your assets that have this glossary term associated with it. So you can see it all in one place. That's really helpful because when you want to get even more context into what other data assets are using it, you have it right here. So
I was
pretty nice.
about to ask.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly. Yeah. And, again, on this page, if it's a database table or whatever entity it is, we can see all the details around that table. So it's just constant visibility, constant information you're getting fed just like that. So really great functionality there. And then if I come to my activities and feeds, this kind of, let me see if I can find a little bit better of an example here. Here we go. So still, we're in a glossary term, but come here, the activity feeds and tasks, it might look familiar to you, that title, because it's in a couple different sections of our platform, but this
Yeah.
enables a collaboration, so you're able to actually tag people, like I can tag my colleague Joe and say, Joe, why did you do that? Something like that, just to ask him where we're at on this. But again,
Yeah.
opening that door to collaboration, opening that door to enablement and adoption is big because we want people to use this platform. We want this to be that source of truth. So that's really big for us there. And then obviously the ability for custom properties, just like database tables, really important. Now,
Mm.
if we go one level up, we're at the glossary level. So here, again, this is basically this page right here. If I were to click on this, this is what it brings up. It brings up my glossaries here on the left-hand side, and then the terms within those
Okay.
glossaries on the right. So I can go through, I can see all my terms and the status that they're in, like approved and a review. And I'll get into that here in a second about why there's statuses, but owners and descriptions at a glance, things like that. And you see this little arrow here. We also have subterms. So maybe some of your glossary terms of business terms have children. You can do that here, and that allows you to
Oh,
have the same parameters for those child terms as the regular terms.
that's
But
interesting.
I think that's super valuable, especially when we're talking about providing insight. Speaking of providing
Yeah, yeah.
insight, yeah, why do we have approved here? We have what's called workflows. So if you don't know, if you come right here to govern
Mm.
workflows, we have something that's called a glossary approval workflow. And what that is it enables you and your users to have a workflow on approving glossary terms. So if you have maybe some stewards or base level contributors that you want to give glossary terms, but you want it at an approval method, you can do that. So as you can see here, it starts with checking if the glossary term has reviewers. And, if it doesn't, then it's automatically approved because it seems like that term isn't really that important. So go ahead and add it. But if it does, then what happens is you can go through this whole process of checking if it's ready to be reviewed and then seeing that condition. And then is it true or false? Going from there all the way down to, setting it to a draft or a review, all the way down to either it's
Okay.
rejected or it comes all the way back up to being approved. So this is given to you out of the box. I think what some people don't understand is you can customize this. You can make it whatever you want it to be in
What's my next question?
keep answering the questions. So yeah, you can totally customize it. Right now, for
Okay.
example, if we come over here, check if glossary
I mean,
term. Go ahead.
this is a pretty logical flow, so it's convenient out of the box.
Yep. True and false, all the way down. Actually, let's look at this one. Check if glossary term is ready to be reviewed. How do I know if a glossary term is ready to be reviewed? What does that mean? If I click on it, oh, the rule to check is if a description is set. So out of the box, what qualifies a glossary term that it's ready to be reviewed is if there's a description set. But what if that's not your case? What if you want to, for your organization, it's, well, I want to make sure that there's an owner, or I want to make sure there's a reviewer. And we checked that earlier, but that's just an example. You can change it to whatever you like. So really neat functionality there with our workflows. So this, again, enables that governance, that workflow to create a process and standard within your organization. So, and really
Okay.
that's the majority of what I want to cover. Glossary terms can be super helpful. There are, again,
Yeah.
a couple easy options to import your business terms and definitions, whether it's a CSV file or you have a really technically advanced team that can create that API to automate the import of glossary terms. So many possibilities here.
Nice. Well, that is illuminating and instructive. Thanks, Kia. Appreciate that overview on the glossaries. It's really an important concept, and yeah, it could be overwhelming, with a new thing you look at and go, "Oh, good lord, how am I gonna get all this in here?" But there are a lot of tools available to simplify the process.
Absolutely. But I'm glad I could show it. Again, very helpful feature here in Collate and helps enable a better and stronger data governance.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the next one.
See y'all.